Okay, so in the palette that you have, I'll kind of close this up. Starts out with the layer, so I'm just going to stretch this out so I can have these lingering here. There is a background layer that has this scan, the part for the text, and then the top one is just for the artwork, but it has some of the information here on the texting here. So I'm just going to give it a new layer and just call it graphics, and that'll be for the top part. So I'm just going to hide this section here and concentrate on this piece. It's just taking the rectangle tool. I'm going to start it off as a resetting it so it just has a foreground background. But inside the color palette, I've already have the colors here created, so make it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to choose the red as the fill, and I'll leave the black just for starters. Close that up, and here it is on the graphics. So it's just making this rectangular shape as I hold the mouse down and just stretching it across to match this side of it, left and right, and coming off the page. And see if that comes up on the section there. So that's kind of placed in there. And I'm just going to build layers above this just to make it easy to understand it. So I'm just going to create a second layer, get the color, and this one has the brown next to it. If you need to save a color, just click and you just drag the swatch right over on the palette and it'll put it there. You can kind of see I already have it there. So I'm going to do the same. I'm kind of getting the width of this, but I'm holding the space bar just to get it off the edge of the page. I'm coming down to this piece. So when I take a look, I'll take off the stroke on that one. That's the red and the brown, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'll take the stroke off of that. So far I have the background kind of built in there. You can see it's kind of off, and I can always adjust these two. I can select whatever's on that layer and shift key to select it this way, so it's both selected, and then I have these options up here to just center them, and they're centered, so it makes it pretty easy. The next part is just the type, and I said use Cooper Black for the text. So when I zoom into this part, just to kind of get a close look to it, take the text tool. I'm going to reset it here and give myself a new layer up at the top, and I can call it text. And just go ahead and click, take the cap locks off. Tootsie Roll. So this is the font, and the font part of this, I'm just going to go to Window, Type and Character, and the character palette shows up. If you have Show Options on, it'll give you all the extending options. So typing in here to get Cooper Black is the font. Okay. The color I can just click to white, and I can also just grab and shift key to get this pretty close to the size, and you can see that it updates the point size right here. So I'm kind of looking at the lettering here for the T and the I. I can switch it around so that the fill and the stroke are there. And again, just focusing in on the letter T for starters, just to get a look in there. Okay, so as I stretch it across, it could make it a little bit wider, and you have the horizontal and vertical set here, so I'm just going to stretch this out just a little bit, and it stretches out that lettering. I can see the spacing between here is a little tight. That's the leading, so when I come into this part, arrow keys up or down, or use the arrows that are there. There's that part. And then it has the indent on the left and the right, so I'm just going to take the text tool, click in front, and use the space bar to bump that over. So now I have this part pretty well situated. I'll switch it out so that the white is now the fill. Okay. If I take a look at the section for creating the registration mark, it does have it here, so it's telling me use Option R for the registration. So I click another text box, don't drag, just click. Option R shows up, and there's the section for it. And you can see that this type, when it came in, isn't 100%. So over here I'm just going to highlight this, change it to 100%, and now it's a perfect circle. I'm going to highlight this and go to Helvetica. As soon as I select all, H-E-L, Helvetica is going to show up, and there it is. So if I go to Helvetica Bold, that's kind of the coloring and changing it white as well. You can't see it too well in the background, but just drag it over here and shift key this part up. So as I get it a little bit larger, I might decide use the arrow keys to position it to take off the effect of bold and just go regular with it. So now I have this section with the text and the registration, so I select them both and group them together. I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to hold the Option key to duplicate it and Shift key to keep it straight and position it as close as I can. And then hit Command D to create a couple more. Let it go off the page a couple times. Okay. Now that it's off there, I can drag a box around all of them so they're all selected and just move them up one step with the Shift key held down, and that guarantees that this part is going over the top. So you can see that it has all that listed in there. I have an extra one down here. So that's setting it up for that part. So of all these sections, I have the text, the brown, and the white, so that's pretty good. The next part is doing the ingredients. So I'm just going to hide some of this. Click on the ingredients I already typed out, but just to show you there's a second scan in there that allows me to create that. So I'm going to give it the ingredients, and I've just typed it out and selected Helvetica again for this section and duplicate it over to this side. So the only thing that's going to change, I'm going to change the color. So I already have the red, so I'm just going to highlight that. When you take a look, it has a little condensed section there, so I'm going to just drag this over. And when I did the type, I didn't do a text box, I just set it in there. It's a little tighter. The leading is what this part is. When you leave the mouse over, it tells you. So I can increase or decrease it to fit there. And rather than repeat this in each one, I'm just going to go to what they call a character style. So under Window, under Type, is Character Styles. So this little window pops open. I already have one saved, but I have this selected. I'm just going to click on Create a New. Double click on this. Let's see if it'll let me change the type of that one. So I click on there. So now when I click on this type, which is this straight text, I can just click on it and it'll give me that, save those functions to it. So it places it there. The only thing it does is the width. So I'm just going to shrink that up just a little bit. And I have the same one for this one here. And I just put the date and the time for that one. There's a copyright symbol, so again, that's just holding an Option C on there. So you can take a look. The section over here. So it's going to give me the sections right here using Option G for the copyright symbol. So selecting all that, Option G. That gives me the copyright symbol again. This has a little bit of distortion in it, so I'm going to highlight this and just put it at 100% and just make it a little bit bigger with the Shift key. Arrow key this down, make it a little bigger. Second. And the last part is just this little graphic logo here. Taking the pen tool, here's the coloring for it. So I'm just going to switch it over. Take this part. You can see the smart guides lining it up for me. Take that section. And this is just the letter G for that. Place that right up in there. And here, if I type in Helvetica again, okay, let me just finish this part. That's going to be on there. So now, you'll see this in a second, but just to show it to you, I'm going to finish this tape of this here. Is I have the layers, if you can imagine, all these parts here, and these ingredients. I'll turn off this scan. So these,
The recording froze on my screen.
I understand. I'm just going to finish this because I'm recording it for you guys. So I'll try to get it over there. So you have to use your imagination right now. As I do this part. So I'm grouping together some of this text, rotating it so it's vertical, placing it where it belongs, and then once you have it, you're going to do the same thing as duplicating it so it goes off the page, which is what they call a bleed, so it gets printed. And taking a couple of these, option over here, grouping them together, rotating it around, placing it there. Okay, so when you're finished, you end up with all of the graphic on here. A couple of the scans hidden there. And that's your graphic. And then once you have this, you end up printing this out. And it'll have your entire